I'm James Sherry, curator for December-January. I've been a fan of Edwin Torres' writing and performance for decades. Rufus published 2 of his books so far, and this fall, Quanundrum, I Will Be Your Many-Angled Thing, will also appear from Ruf. In this manuscript, which I'm reading now, Edwin appears to be moving his performative energy toward environmental writing, as are many of our most celebrated experimentalists. His formulation might be summarized as a small infinity has appeared in the crest of ignition, a curve for all things stolen, a swipe at things that magnify. The impossibility of size and infinity positions this work in both the avant-garde and the imagination. His energy drives electrons to jump rings, his frame to leap across the map. Quote, "Who dared leave this seat out on this road, along galaxy's rim shot? I took in release for a go at free. And found and free are his creations, quote, dot here, dot there, to again the again, and there the dot and here, caught one again to gain the here, to dot the here, and over one more, the other dot, to gain again its dot, own here to be, to open here, I walk between now and there." I'm reading this and saying to myself, this is difficult to read and requires close concentration, maybe not so much free as intensely focused. I'd like to read the whole book to you, and I hope you'll all get to read it when it comes out. But here's one more trope from the manuscript, very Edwinian, very lyrical, very thought through. World matter poet, univirament sawdust, to form mouthal relationships with your somatic daydream. Invent new ways of being yourself. So here is a poet constantly reinventing himself in language, which might be definitional of poetry. As an avant-gardist, Edwin also wants to break the usual poetic binaries. Quote, "As if reason were enough for ideals, for emphatic ideals, raised on severed selves, once taught to retreat from what can't be touched, to can't once reason-touched ideal, as if it is, as you say, reason enough for me to stop speaking, to start again when the start again stops, you see." Edwin understands that retreating to oneself doesn't solve the conundrum of quanundrum that he proposes. Quote, "What a way wants to be to you. A way is not self, and to you, that is yourself, are connected by parallel phrases, to be and to you, and in this Edwin builds a parallel poetic universe where we are multiples and each other as much as ourselves." This to me is the essence of the cultural change required to cool the environmental fiasco. He asked the question, quote, what does a way mean to you when you pull it away from you? I suggest that I am you, I am we, and so on. So these parallels, we pass from the humanist universe to Edwin Torres' environmental multiverse. Please lend an ear to Edwin Torres.
Thank you, James. Thank you all for coming by. It's a real honor to read with Anne. And here we go. I am actually starting with the poem that James referenced, and then we will go from there. I tend not to talk too much between poems. Tadpole at Starlight. A small infinity has appeared on the crest of ignition, a curve for all things stolen, a swipe at things that magnify. I was the infinite for a moment, traveled inside lightless eye, rode a width across a legion's pupil, molded by something closer than free. About to crash into a million years, if I could just leave the floating to smaller bugs, my fingers now closed, my eyes hovering over my keys, over each letter. My frogs looking to land on soft ground. That's all we want, isn't it? A launch pad over stellar indications of messy instability? Or maybe a drain to edit, to take the universal out of in, for all things balanced on lunar surf? The circumstance of delicate cognition telegraphs a step. Let me go up to you, now warm in the place I remember and tired. Do you know how, you ask? Your answer, the one I start with. Deal with it. The girl I lost my virginity to, older than me, tough as nails, exotic Sicilian, held nothing back, wore her passion proudly before I knew about words, art, life. A four-eyed 20-something tweener. A robust, hot-drinking Amazon, our seeming differences, the polarities we clung to. There we were on a Saturday night, a bar in Queens, a pool table in the back. Enough guys hitting on her to count for something. Her telling them to screw off like always. Me embarrassed but thrilled to be near such danger. The appearance of a box of kittens. Suddenly at a bar in full view of too much beer. The one little furry guy being passed around, placed on the floor before knowing how to walk. Looking as drunk as his surroundings. His large little paws tripping over themselves, slurring in complete command. From across the bar, she gives him a look reserved for male bondage. Before anyone gets a chance for cute oohs or ahs, she yells out, "Deal with it!" Like, you and all your cuteness, you can't walk. You better learn to walk. You ain't no difference than me. You think you're better than me? Deal with it. Right then and there I knew she was the girl I would break up with. After a few more years of meaningful sex, I would learn compassion, grow into my prowess, our relationship a navigation of teacher and subject. 7 years of intensity. Growing up, my mom and sisters never argued. Retaining adolescence in guise of balance. Now, in the bloom of my supposed adulthood, I opened up, allowing full expression, its 180 deep dive into mutual longing. Something in our psyche kept us together through dips and valleys, her solid ferocity a marvel of empathy for creatures beyond our grasp. She thought there was a future, so did I, without her, a concept I wasn't skilled enough to decipher. Did I ever tell her to deal with that? We lasted longer than some marriages, but somehow the walls that came down for me grew solid for her. In the neon haze of that bar, a lifetime ago, formed in this reckoning, right now, by the thrills we envision as flesh. This next sequence will be a poem called Lunar Shift from Yes Thing, No Thing, to be followed by a poem in the current issue of Denver Quarterly. The poem is retitled here as AKA Fulfillment Flow and goes out to MF Doom, a musician who left a sublime legacy of layered dexterity, warmth, and sonic possibility. I'll be borrowing his music, but first, Lunar Shift. Get myself set up here. Lunar Shift. The breath implied from where it bends calls you and me to song again. Maybe the animals know more than we do about change and what happens in flight. If I've given you too many choices, it's only because your bravery is an illusion, a whisper from where I stand. If I had all the answers, I'd be done now, and ease would suffocate night with routine. What does that sound like to you? Here in my spot, far from yours, your smell spins a circle. A knight borrows a dog, lands him on the other side. A star finds me, burns its points through my skull. An hour floats a bird, glass pretends to be sky. If I knew where to go, would we be there now? Give absent light fulfillment right, its course laid bare without a flight. Is there a course without a fight? Foolish love lead foolish lives, as if they knew what fools were. Could have been the layered talking point. Could have been the jester's yester speak. Does element or hubris, body giver or body dark, with sightlines just out of reach, to tell me what I want to hear, to open the expected outcome, as an ear of unknown proportions wrapped in murmur, to land hard upon assembly, to demand love when least loved, could have been the manufactured vision for coverboy regalia. Heart's outrageous capacity for loneliness surpassed by depth of reason, of emotion, of sun's falsetto after cliffs, drained across helpless blues. The servile function to look across a room, to see if you see who needs to be seen, to see if you see who needs to be seen, for a god to be activated by a nod or a twitch across a din. The grander expectation, to leave when least inspired, to see the grander expectation, to allow one to see. Subordinate Volca. I was holding a sea creature tightly in bed. The room was not mine, but a long, darkened space with no walls. Almost an ocean bottom with no water. It was mid-dawn or late at night. There was a we I was with, and we were under covers, exposed, engaged in what might be considered aggressive cuddling. Up there, on the surface, distance law. Humanity had ascended to avoidance for survival. Violence was carried out without leaving home using language. Crimes were committed every sentence. Alone time was no longer a mandate. There, under the rendered open, guided meditations were released in slippage. As the shadow keeping me warm kept floating and settling back on whatever it was I had become. The creature in my arms was cocooned in translucent secrets. Hints of the binary defined our encounter. My male had nothing to do with my other male. As if I were holding a shapeless beanbag protected in a clear sack. We were viral tentacles, unlimbed by reciprocal touchlings. Hovering over each other, the head was a protrusion where the neck should be. Encased in hermetics, agoraphobic aurora, effable sock mask, secured by Assyrian tendrils buckled on each side. With features pulled back, the face was a cross between a pucker and the luminescent temporal within. Conundrum of the spectral. What counted for something remained there. A clear latex funnel appeared where the mouth should be. Bright red lips at the base, and my barely contained appendages with no trace of want. I was holding this unformed sack of flesh while listening closely to whispered insurrections, spilling slowly from the inverted triangular mouth funnel. I would, in turn, open my mouth over the funnel, guiding droplets of silver to engorge themselves around the cochlea. Organ, finding organ, we were patient, catching what bits of frenetic arousal would conjure themselves into each other's available orify. We remained like this for years, swaying to non-existent tremors, spilling the secrets of takeovers without fear of hierarchy or promise. You know, there is a way of not understanding. Look at the buzzed entrance from ear to alignment, the redefined balance from brain to skeleton, marrow to language, bone boss, the lumber union strike, codes and into here, half human, half understanding, the bi-unit integral, the valved upsolver, the filament engorger. What was the prima material nutrix where the phantom father came to me to create a new world? The antiquated field provider, the foci imprisoner, too stuffed up in a world I don't know. One that knows me too well, too hot and bothered by not knowing when I stare at a screen and force blood into script, allow DNA its momentary dazzle through fingertips, through days, that lost integer realized by gravity. Catch the page in the sun, page sun, passion, pronounce inverted tropes inveiled as storms of language that realize for you when you have no realization left. But we all know where this is headed. Great mistakes make greater leaders, and I'm only trying to write through this. No lonely road knows no desert, shot flat-toothed pale by red-right sandman. Gusted beggar knocks on my glass. Ancient crater, hollowed bone, nasty prick on prick wing outside my cloud brings me news from up here, where cloud cover pretends to glide. When does intuition need direction? This could be my mother, but it's only political narrative. You know, there's a way of not understanding that implies layered approach. Like, where am I in my understanding that makes what you see much lower than mine instead of what's different than I? No lonely desert knows no flat plain, paled by right as right sandman. I just heard that already. A few stanzas above. The gusted beggars. I just said that. Who knock on my glass all the time? These thoughts at night, and I'm just trying to catch them before they hurt someone else. Ancient crater cracks bone, nasty wing-on-wing action, a people about to crack. Did I say already? I'm repeating lately too many things. So many wings outside this house, our house. Whose cloud? My cloud. Brings me news from up here. Cloud cover pretends to be smoke, to glide in a world I don't know, one that knows me too well, too hot and bothered by not knowing, by not saying you're weak. Don't tell them. They need you. You force your blood into their script. Look at them. Stare at screen. Don't react. It's live. They don't need me. This is because of me. Allow DNA its momentary fingertip razzmatazz, that lost outcome realized by gravity. They fall because of me. Catch the sun, incumbent sun, my unveiled ropes, inverted as storms of wrong that realize for you when you have no wrong left. Look at the buzzed entrance. That's how we started. From mouth to gate. That redefined balance from movement to skeleton. To break through people by becoming the people. Force grows both language and I. Bone boss. Spinal union. Codes and codified curlicues into what I have here. Half human, half understanding. What is it I'm trying to reel by reeling over and over the real I'm not? The bi-unit integral, the valved absolver, the antiquated field provider, the insurgent repetizer. I am trying to live again and again and again through what I don't understand to change an outcome by repeating what I've lived through. The filament engorger, the foci imprisoner. But we all know where this is headed. Share the screen here now. This is called Boot and Fac Massage, Redefining the Modern Minority. All right. Now, in the days of fluidity, in order to tell what is and isn't, like language, en los días de fluidez, lo que es, no es, como lenguaje es el humanaje. Be white, be noise, you know, invisible hombre, ser blanco, ser ruido, como hombre invisible. Take loop, make leap, like nom de plume becomes speech du free, como el lazo y el hace, nom de plume habla pa libre. How zong be boat, you see, book be song, like me for me, como zong ser barco, ves libro ser canción, yes. Harder to tell these days who is and isn't gringo. Know what I mean? The way lingo. Más difícil quién es o no gringo. Como forma, como lingo. Flat used to be globe. Amigo green. Now swipe era plana, será globe. Amigo verde, ahora swipe. Jihad at night in sun jihad. Look at mom be dad. Be mom. How rad. Jihad, noche sol jihad. Ver mama, ser papa, say mama, que rad. Don't mind thing for word, just wish could see. No me importa cosa por palabra, solo desearía poder ver. Without noise or me, get in way, sin ruido, o yo metí in way. Vaya. All right. This webinar format is strange because I don't feel... I know you're out there. I don't see you. But it feels really good to just be here with you all. Okay. Two quick little ditties here. This is called It Takes a Nuclear Football to Get a Parade. Unprecedented lame duck. Never has a title been so deserved. This is called The Anonymous Shaman. To be a QAnon shaman, the QAnon credo, where we go all. To QAnon, we shaman, go all. Go one, we all go where? Were we gone, we go all one. Q1, we all to shaman all, we'd one, anon, we all. To be Q, shaman anon, to be go, all go, or where, or one, were Q, were one, were all, were go, gone. Where we were all, or alled by one, who alled when one was one, who gone, to be anon, to go away, gone. To Q, where all go where one does all. We all go one, all go we were. We all go us, where were we all? Subject to the call of the choir. I'm tired of being told what a day is supposed to mean. Did you know that holding on to an impossible day wreaks havoc on your invisibility? And if I am thinking more than what I am giving, it is because I have it here to give, gathering facts of poems that write themselves if I take myself out of the subject to call the choir the call. If there before the grace go where to make of these exhaustive men, these exhaustive white men, to layer the nation they are under the language we are. Stone sacraments chiseled in death spirals by exhaustion, or is that a lost grip? From these men that are nothing like you, and here my seemingly random intelligence is polished to secure direction with the least amount of effort. Of course I'm like them. How? I'm trying to wrap my head around something that isn't reductive. My seemingly random heritage. I can't help but think of my seemingly random intelligence as a byproduct of my heritage, subject to the choir I witnessed with broken glass and mission in equal measure, how flames on a fire make secrets real. Minority defines majority. These framers, these unclaimed victors for corrugated governance, let that image infiltrate your cooling mechanisms. Take the farm and batter the pitchfork. Do I really have to write about this? Exhaustive, these scepters, these flags without poles. If it is my own suffering that I am giving into, there is no one there to receive what I thought was here to give. It is only that I want worth, selfhood as worth. Who's saying that? Retract, pull back, remove words to make words. If the misguided have a chant, it is misheard. To be in a place where the misheard exists, that interwoven exhaustion of trying to be heard through a mask you can't breathe through. To let that gesture count for something, vulnerability is so precarious to reach, such a courage to reverse. And how do I retreat from a hill to die on? Humane in name only, high, no. Truth in name only, tie, no. Latino in name only, tly, no. Change in name only, I would go on, but the code of allegiance is subverted by the optics of a nation infected with freedom. Exhaustive freedom that I wonder how to create, how to give, how to write at all. Does that full circle back to creation as giving, to writing, just writing, does that? And here my question filaments into the ether. To the nameless lineage I reference at every breath, at every exhaled immersion of selfhood, identified as arthood, deserving of a question mark, chiseled into these men, these exhaustive, tired men, carved of subjugation, these builders of prophecy polished in secularity. And here, is this a good place to bring about the bringer of doubt? Let him, it is him. Let him add some more. A day later, and I will add some more. A day later, and then I will, a day later, chant the refrain familiar to the outcome. Subject to the choir, astringent to the fold, the iPhone that you sow, civil waiver, 15-minute famer, where is your exhaustive tread internal to the great organic unfolding? Watching a small mind become smaller is exhausting. My entered immersion is how I talk these days. And this universal I inside this univi is dictating parallel time zones, resignation zones, comedial deliberation zones, infinite mediation zones. People are not in a vacuum zones. Mentalities are not cast off zones. Remove the media you invent to remove the fuel that lit you. How do I hand off about reason while genuflecting my orbital reassignment? Earthhood was my gender, but I am flexible. Trying to take myself out of this moment so I can see my own. What poem does to poet. Which famously, what I think is not what world thinks, a caveat for the Socrates inversive I perplex myself with. Exhaustive the central immersion I perplex myself with. Clarion call for the lyric as subject. Hey, that exhaustive white supremacist works in Home Depot. Rock climbing skills on point. I love you in your sneakers and gray sweater. I love you with your battering skull through bulletproof chamber. It's him. He got me a drill last week. Took a day off from nowhere. I love you as the sun sinks yellow gas on your ass. Didn't know you could sing doesn't make you a star, no matter how much in unison your Catskill fatwa. I love you and your mountain goat mask throwers. I love you and your Looney Tune flag wearers. Feels oddly personal to have my front door attacked on TV with the world watching. Our house. This is our house. Whose house? Koryana Squatsy pulls time forward through the butt of a civilization. Reams and reams of how the sausage is made through one wooden door pulled back reverse colonoscopy. I love how the power of messaging is a comment on a broken annihilation. I love how there is no urge watching live images of untouchable symbols made of distant realms I've never allowed in my consciousness. Skulls made of instant patriarchy. What are the optics of astringent precision made of stars and stripes? These men, these exhaustive, lonely barricades of a nation subject to the call of the choir. Brothers in name only, by no. Others in name only, oh I know. Gonna be a wild one, why no. Walk down with me and wrap my head around the fall. As if day anew were to steal. From the safety of my screen, how I stepped outside my scream to become these men, to remember this day as if each day is not special, filled with very special people that we love. Okay, it's like, and now a commercial. So when you see me, let me join this waking world. Driving for how long and still no sun between these white lines. For how many hours on the coast with Spotify numbing. No singer's lyric, no someone else, no summer sung at 4 a.m. on a lonely highway. Turn off and wait by the road, shut eye for a few winks. I'm all about the luminal, says the liminal. Flatness is a virtue for dispossessed globe. Infinite tadpole over horizon. Let me close my eyes and see if something else comes to me. Wants to enter this prime season of endless white lines on a black year. This is not an ending, but a sequence for you to continue, to respond in the moment of an insight. This last poem is called Invocation of the Free Fall. Let me repeat that. Invocation of the Free Fall. And how to observe the infinite space and process, and all release as form untouched, and your fleshly remaining. Is that what you hold or offer? And my orbiting sensatia alive in sensual vertigo. I am not healed or in space, but as I am. I am not broken or in space, but there again. I am not bramble or volume, but face, head, love. At the worry of intimacy, I dive back into the what I make. Release as form, into the space reminders of what? Free fall? Gazing in all directions, landing alone again, innocent of interruption, into the you again. And how to be grateful for the fold in your lenticular light pods, as empty vessel, as imploding oracle, as broken chamber, my heart as explosion. Shrapnel divination, devolving isolation, eternal by arrival, and how to thank perception, your purge, your fibrous spawn of spirits I ascend through. I long for awareness of the eternal. I long for the faces I share out there, or mine. I long for the narrow strip, the unmeasured walk, defiled, yet filled with longing. And what has brought such dearness to closeness, and all fragile warmth to ecstasy, and feral speeder, my faster, I thank perception of the spirits, the friends I don't contact. to have known such improbable alignment, the animals I don't see. I thank the family I don't have, the ones I do, the objects I embody, the lives I've loved. Here, let me foist a shadow on the grass. Would it take so much to uncover what years have held? What is it that burrows beneath perception of the immaterial, that obfuscates the insurgent flow, but breath as emotional resonance, gazing above as below? It was there, wasn't it? You found my green, my open window, the quivering mainframe I relish every night, to return to the feral for the promise of the subjugated lie. Aroused by arrival, those R words, delicious for the rosed flesh, a thorn of inconsequence, elegy of my most distant sight, the standing unseen previousness that allowed here to happen. And how to reignite the normal out of its penumbra, and what does it mean to get lost in each other, and farewell the express and our hands as humans, and you, my bothness, my lazy eye-haver. The thing that's coming isn't the thing here. The thing broken, metonymic, interior thing I can't touch, the thing I'm not worried about, what I hold on to, what escapes, the burbling criterion I'm not about. It is my choosing that occupies catching breath and leaving breath. I thank what I align as notation. I thank perception of the rise, then again ahead of itself the step. What I know I didn't, what I needed when. I thank perception of time, derelict traveler, self-nomad of selves, selver, theyer, you were, isolated creature, weaving interstitial enigma. I'm not choosing ever as the most actual, but freefall as the cosmic interior. The mosaic opens, and how does the same unfold? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Edwin. That was great. Now let's take a 5-minute intermission, during which we'll ask you to donate $5 to the readers. Please remember, all donations go to pay the poets, no overhead. Izzy, if you'll put up the placard, and we'll have a 5-minute break with music and then come back with Ann Lauterbach. Welcome back, and thank you for your donations. As always, all contributions to the Segue Reading Series go directly to pay the poets. So please, if you haven't done so already, do so at the end of the program. We'll post the payment methods again after the show. And now, on to our second reader of the afternoon. Ann Lauterbach's amalgam of logic and sensibility are highly tuned instruments of poetic composition. Her irony detects the human logic in our exchanges through the more delicate registers of technology. I said, "There are fewer pills than there should be." He said, "A robot counts them." Her years in the art world continue to support her work, as in her sonnet, parenthetically Ray Delacroix, quote, "Others who preen for our signature, our dumb addendum, violence wears a pretty red bow. See, a gift of the Magi." And of course, that's going on right now in our ekphrastic politics. But Anne doesn't reside in one mode for long, as in this expedition into what she calls nights in the asyntactical world, where 4 word clusters remind me of who exactly? I can hardly call them inspired by Second Avenue. Quote, "Sparked enemy cluster, radiant ball, applied rodent, blue fuel." Or later in the same nights, she links environment and politics with the sequence, quote, "A nation's flames, habitat, scald, reflection, puddle clouds, the instant arrival as of final last star strewn." While I have repeatedly celebrated the usefulness of taxonomy over evaluation in poetry, I can't help saying that world-class writing exceeds the boundaries of logos like New York School or language-centered writing or eco-poetics, Not that they don't exist, but that their borders are permeated by countless channels of connection and interaction that Anne exploits. And as I have written elsewhere, we can't help but write about our environment. It's too big to be ignored. And if we try it, it infiltrates our every thought and every gesture. And so Anne, too, drives her writing from the overexposed self of romantic imagination toward acknowledging that there is a world out there and that we benefit to notice and benefit from realizing its impact on us, regardless the lease on life we expect to give us privilege. Quote, what is the status of the empirical? What we see and hear when we perceive it is not necessarily what we can or should believe. By which I think she means that we need to be modest about our species. I'm pleased to have a few friends who over the years increased in fame and excelled at their poetry more than a little, because as their achievements accumulated, they increased their knowledge of the world around them. In this case, I think her name is sufficient to exemplify affiliation as the language of poetry. Please welcome Ann Lauterbach.
Thanks, James. Lovely to be here. Wonderful series for so many years. Wonderful to hear you, Edwin. Hear you, listen to you. Hi, everybody. It's so unnerving to be talking to you who are nowhere. I'm going to start with a little, the beginning of a piece that I wrote for a little book that Segue just published on Felix Gonzalez Torres photostats. I wrote a piece I started it just as the pandemic was beginning, and so it kind of fell into the sphere of the pandemic. And the book is beautiful and includes a wonderful piece of writing by Monica de la Torre, who's I think reading next week in the series with Joan Ritalik. Anyway, I'm just going to read you the first part of this piece of writing I did for the photostats of Gonzalez Torres. The days are untitled, and then, and then, and then. Is this a list, a calendar, a Wednesday, rain? The days are untitled, even as they are stitched with photos of the emptied sky above the emptied street and live updates in the realm of counting. Counting is not naming. 100 or 29,000 nameless. Which one is called Cuba? Which one Ross? The pause increases its domain, piecemeal, unobserved, trivial, masked. The corners are eroded, bending into new forms, but stationary, as if waiting, as if fundamental, neither redundant nor opaque. There is an airy detritus of the envelope gaining on us, the epicenter of a storm, the jargon of capital, the aspiring ghosts awakened, but nameless. Slant awakened, sleepy in the aftermath, a tool of the ordinary spread like a shadow outward, shadow into night, night into never, leaning into or across the path, horizontal, as if reading to rupture indifference. What other life? There in the distance, this one unlisted, uncounted, and desires saturated mission, encumbered by the perishable, by the floating agenda, wanting to be an event raised up over the neutral. 1, 2, 3. And the body's emoji, the disparate embrace of the audience, heartless sign and contingent fact awaiting renown. Some horse is dying, some flower, air still above the museum's silent leap, air still above the museum's silent leap. Around the immaculate surfaces, signs, please do not touch. And so told in brief the slogan's approach to living. And then a child's habit of speech tracking the day without consequence, an inertial listing towards a factless paradise, corpse wrapped in plastic. Who put that there? Who posed for that? The increments are tremendous. And were they inconsolable in the aftermath, the undetectable region of unlikeness after the numbers, after the counting, signing off from the ravished plateau, seeking the smallest increments on the turning plot and its present indictment, coded swiftly into the pretty colorless flower and the falling yellow rain's slant address? Index and citizen under the fearful untitled passage, self-portrait as invisible test, unquantifiable inhalations, patterns of a pulse. Count. This is going to be in a new magazine called Here, edited by Jason Labe. Look out for it. It's coming soon. It's always nice to have a new magazine. Count. I said, there are fewer pills than there should be. He said, a robot counts them. My earlobe is torn. Can it be mended? Probably, but by whom and how? A needle and thread? A robot? Glue? Have you noticed things in general seem torn? Can they be mended? By what or whom? I sometimes wish I could start again in that other field with the magenta sky. What to do with these ashes? What to play when everyone is quiet and tearful? Play some tunes from the border, some lyrics from the distant past of another country, a place where no one knows the word for robot. The names are scented and blurry. They cascade down a mercantile ravine, awash with meaning and the equations of logic ripped from documents and thrown overboard. The children are delighted. They cannot read. They love the mighty mud and the relic tin cans. What is that? They ask, staring at the rusty R. It's the beginning of something that ended a long time ago. Hearsay. These are in couplets. You can't tell, can you? Hearsay. What did you say? I said. What? And in that dream, I was married to her, and she, I don't know who she was. Perhaps she was you, perhaps only me, marrying a better me, perhaps now drilling down into its absurdity like a mole in the grass whose head got bit off by my cat before it was a metaphor. Like or as, I always forget. It is too hot, and the garden is sad, moving to its final stage, never a pretty sight. I too am moving to my final stage. Stage is an interesting word, as we think perhaps of Marlene Dietrich or Lena Horne, or the artist formerly known as Prince. They, then, I danced to with my then BF in Minneapolis. Oh, Minneapolis. What did they say? He said. The garden is sad, it is too hot. The trouble with doing things on a hope in some words is they don't always come true. All men are created equal. All that talking the talk, saying the said. What did he say? I said. And after the final stage, when one has walked or been dragged off so the whole scene is as empty as the glass by my bedside. The glasses by my father's bedside were kept separate while we were quarantined for polio, which killed him. And then I would try to find him in a dream. Word was that Marlene Dietrich made a pass at him, and I have a gold-plated knife he stole from the embassy in Moscow. Someone said, use the knife to pry something open so it is damaged at its point. The way things get damaged by ill use. Do words get damaged by ill use, scratched, torn, stained, dulled down to their thinnest shadow, the shadow of lies and cruelty, as when you wandered out of earshot? I'm debating this next poem, so I'm putting it aside while I debate it. Late elegy. You have missed so much in the seasons, have been absent so long, there is no way to list the things you have missed, no way, as if describing the sunsets day by day would begin, but they ephemera, indistinguishable, even when there are storms, as now thunder moving across the upper reaches, rain descending, the sky flash lit, and then as now quiet, the rain delicate falling from the maple leaves above, while the thunder moves off to other terrains. You missed the storm and countless others, as I will also miss, but not the fear that rides up, not the reckoning, which our mother loved, her inner storm met by rupture, wind, downpouring. You did not miss those, but you missed this and the pale afterlight. The pale afterlight, I recall on the train to Washington thinking you would not see this spring flowering then or ever, not the cherry blossoms, not the rhododendrons, not the tulips, as we approached the city which now has seen the day's rupture incessantly in broad daylight. I'm going to read 3 more poems, all of which are quite new. I have a thing about chat. It makes me very nervous. Chat down there, chat. Chat among yourselves. Okay, as if. Credentials hover over an unknown aftermath, spoken now, already dreaming, as if a child ardent, surpassing, maybe adrift, on the windy architecture of ruin, already melted under the familiar constellation of the unforgiven, displayed as silence, rat-a-tat-a-tat. Lyrics muddied by vernacular troubadour, coiling hair around a thin finger, part portrait, part song, as if to hear were simple as a stone. Or never to look out, never to touch, the known viral spin and the body's rendition blurred in perpetuity, cascading into a lens like feathers or snow's ragged emporium. And if they come forward, hurting in their feet, breathing uneasily into the narrative clause, into an historical imperative ensemble of untruths already at large in the circulating spate of reception, walking the streets in plaid, helping themselves to leftovers, craven, forgetful, and the appearance of claustrophobic abstraction, as if they have no stories to tell, no sorrow to confess, no requitals attested by neglect, no spoons, sweaters, shoes, no memories to offer to the few sitting at the bus stop in the absorption of their plans. A doctrine of the ordinary might pivot to fable, to tell among strangers, to save the incident's path from beginning to end, as if being remiss in the saying, always expectant, some new ingredient of the shade, some reckoning flaunted. Interior. Well, that's where we all are, right? We're in our interiors. But thanks, James, for telling me that I actually know there's a world out there. That's nice of you. Interior. I have turned my back on the mountains. Let the sun have them. Let the sun have the river as well. I am done with it. I am done with the sun and the mountains and the river. Now I will stare at the spines of books, at the spines and the hinges and the knobs. The spines of books hold a chorus singing from the dead to the living and the living to the dead. Hello. I was about to reread The House of Mirth, but then recalled that we read it aloud to each other, chapter by chapter in bed. The sun is setting behind my back, behind the knobs are secrets. I will tell about them another time. The files are useful. They are neither fully open nor shut. I was speaking to a young man about the ineffable. He seemed to want a way to say it. I said the nature of the ineffable is the unsayable. The spine's address is inward and outward, the once and never more recurring, collapsing there into here, like the quick shadow of that bird. The painting anticipates its assembly under a punitive moon. Remember me. Was that a question? Hard to say, and don't look up. Questions burden us towards landscapes of old growth trees and the terror of the kill. Hi, it's me again. I had a dream in which things happened that do not and will not in real life. I look up into the disobedient figure of the real and resent its sentence. I am not a platform. The body foresees its future, playing a certain tune aside or beside the point of a beautiful unfolding. Unbelonging, yes, but to whom or to what? I apologize. I looked up at the eternally weeping willow. Widow? Window? I can't see in the dark. As ever, I have a clock here. I looked at it. I immediately forgot when I began. It's so peculiar. It happens every time I've given a reading. I've looked at my watch and then I've forgotten immediately what time it was. Okay, I'm gonna read this last poem. Is a little bit longer. I don't usually write long, continuous poems. It makes me nervous. It's called Company. Take me with you. These were already worn, these gloves. I prefer the question previously raised in that other year among strangers, quicksand and strangers. And the aesthetic questions, ignore them. They're old, they are dust. The moon also dust, from time to time illumined with a bright wish. Ignore it. I might ask to be released from turbulence, if only you would forgive whatever sin I committed, as if in sleep, striking with my glass sword the fixed mountain with its false gold sunset, peeling the glue from my fingers, sleeping in my sweater. The dawn begs, do not wake up. Why stampede when the ghost of Anne Hutchinson is shivering in the snow, still whispering, I desire to know wherefore I am banished. Works, grace, footprints, the wet alignment of dream sex somewhat resembling lovers, postcards, meetings under the eaves all the long summer day. Look aside, forgive me, step across the border where a rude addendum is carved into urban stone. They went from pause to glittery pause, carrying boxes made from bark torn from dead ash trees. The bricks were darkly stained as if they had wept oil, the oil massed, distributed like a thick emptiness. Take me with you. I have lost sight of the girl holding a bag filled with constellations yet to be drawn. Did you follow her? Where to? The numbered cards were all the same suit, red and black, 1 to 10, their small nouns stacked like memories into order. She awaits the fool, his slain pet, his hungry eye, one way to pass the time in winter. The magician from an earlier game, long since gone. You see how one dawdles when information is scarce. You see how the glass is marred with fingerprints. They were already used, these gloves. The necessary foils a curtailed agenda, blown out so we face the dark, blissful, and ordinary as clouds arranged as bodiless wings. Quickly, metamorphosis happens and a radiance burns through despite adhesions, despite the familiar stench lingering in history. Under this alphabet, there is another recessed, entangled, its charge carved into rings of hair, rings of bone, its vocabulary remote. Learn again to speak. The observed world, iterations, images, stories, ceaseless pictorial stunts masquerading as language, turns from sight, even as the bird feeder lies on the ground and warm air pulses thin paper like disturbances among the departed. Leslie in claret velvet smiling. Joe holding a glass, shirt open, so pleased to be Joe. Stacy standing with Chet by the window on Duane Street, her face half lit. John speaking from his long shelf, mildly, ever kind in the cruel regime of the perpetually cruel. They, there, the unapproachable crowd's molecular dust. She copied the assignment down word for word. She made a list, hoping to loosen its grip on the foliage. She changed her mask. She wiped the breath from her glasses, thinking of Salon and of Arendt, thinking mostly of Blake. A gang of white boys smoking assembled at the corner in their tight shirts and jeans, their polished hair. And Louise? Pinks and blues, unborn babies wrapped in burlap and hung from the ceiling like huge wasp nests. The hemlock also wrapped against deer for the winter. The mother, bleeding, clutched half a strand of pearls. The rest returned to the sea over which fireworks cascaded upward, meticulous as spider webs. What, she wondered, is precious? Let us try for once, Kendrick had said from the library stage. The cost of change disappears, he added. Where? Into the momentum of immaterial delirium, hidden beneath the salty waves to mingle with the accumulated tears shed for the newly dead. On the round table, a pinkish glass bowl filled with dry magnolia leaves. She wished not to look back. She wished to stay, to believe she might go on ahead. It is early, it is dawn. Take me with you. Let me carry your tools. Let me help you over the stream. Intense discrepancy performs its sabotage. She vowed to show up, but now, as always, it is too late. The day half gone into an ignorant blank. The man unknown, his hand on her breast, perhaps a doctor, perhaps someone's brother or father or son. Who would mend the basket? Who sew the hem? Who lift the bleeding boy up off the street? What economy caused this waste? What threshold crossed? Skirt muddy, hands swollen with tasks an ancient song had preached. Christmas Eve, I announced I wanted to have a conversation about materialism. There had been no gifts. Everyone was lonely and bereft. Everyone, no exception, not even the beloved. The remark fell into the stormy night like a shooting star, invisible, so no one made a wish. No one said, what? Remember when the ferry pulled away from shore and the receding land seemed increasingly phantom as it flattened a silhouette against the horizon, like Catalina Island behind this poem on the screen? It was that kind of moment, arrested, distant silence. The reverie faded too, with its ribbons and bulbs, tinsel twisting in the breeze, the kids on the bed with their stockings, walnuts and mandarins and balls wrapped with surprises. What did you get? A frog and a bell and a green plastic ring. You failed, hissed the fool from his stool in the closet. You failed the test and you can't do it over. As if there were a story, as if it could be told and told again without variant, not a single word out of place, like a ballad sung generation to generation, carrying its sentiments forward on its old tune. Repeat after me, oh, oh, oh. The song always begins with an O. The O's are behind me now, obedient as pets. The fool isn't talking to me, he's talking to you. Thanks.